And I've been on the other end of that. It's like, I'm not sticking with that. That's good. And then at some other point, come back to it in a more mature state, and you can literally look at it. I've done that with software. I love to buy different software and SaaS products and stuff like that. I've had software for several years that when I got it, it was like, oh, it seemed like a good idea, but for whatever reason, I didn't use it. And I'm picking some of it up right now, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see how this works. This business podcast, the Two Business Guys Mastermind, uncovers for you secrets and share tips and tricks to entrepreneurship as they mastermind on how to have startup, operational, and overall business success so that you can go on to get better results. Enjoy. So, hey, Rob, I am very curious about a couple of things in today's lesson, today's workshop. And it's been something that has been rolling around in my head, but also I've been hearing from a lot of other people. It's these frequently asked questions, right? People are really, with all the information that's out there, with the chat GPTs and the AI ability to do basically all kinds of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. These questions seem to keep coming back. And I wonder if it's the same at the startup level, the mid-level, or the high level, right? But so in this episode, let's go ahead and go over some of these frequently asked questions and see if there's something that we can add to them.
I love it.
Right. So one of the ones that I have been hearing a lot lately is, how do I know what idea to follow? And then you spoke on, discovering why. So let's jump into that. How do I know what idea to follow?
I think that's one of the things that I taught to lead, and to the question, like, is it different at different levels? This is one of those things that's the same at every level. How do you know which way to go when you come to a fork in the road, right? And so many people are so focused on the which way to go part. And this is the common mistake that I find, at least with different people, is that Yogi Berra said it like this, the manager for the Yankees, right? He said, if you don't know where you're going, any way will do.
Hey, Yogi.
Right? And the whole idea is, you have to know where you're going. You have to know, and for my clients, one of the things we talk about finding success, right? You have to know what good looks like. You have to know what the definition of done is. When you get there, what does it need to look like for you to be satisfied, for you to be happy, for you to feel like you did what you were supposed to do? And if you don't know that, then spending all this time trying to figure out, well, do we take the freeway? Do we take the byway? Do we take the highway? Do we walk? All of that stuff is pointless if you don't already know what you want it to look like when you get there.
What success looks like. Yeah.
Exactly. What does success look like? And I've noticed with, the hundreds of people that I've coached now, that's one of the most difficult inquiries. It normally, before this new tool that we started using in our company, it used to take me an hour, sometimes 2 hours, to help people to navigate that journey. Right. But we've now figured out a way in 5 or 10 minutes, we can help people to figure out what is their why. What is the driving force, the key behind why you do what you do. Simon Sinek talked about, you got to start with why, right? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And that whole concept, we help people. I've always loved what he said about that and incorporate it into what I do. But now we have a tool that helps people do it so much faster. And the key is, whenever you're looking at different choices, how do I know which one I need to take? How do I know which one I need to do? You have to know why you're doing it. Your why is your North Star. Your why is your true north, where it doesn't matter if there's an obstacle in front of you. If you know that you're going, let's say, for example, we're in Michigan, right? Let's say we're going to California. We want to go to LA. Now, we know that LA is west of where we are currently. However, if we go directly west from where we are, we run into this problem of Lake Michigan, right? But because we know that we're going to LA, we know that there's a couple of different ways that we can go around Lake Michigan and get to LA. We can go south and then turn back and go west again. And all while we're going south, we're not thinking that we're supposed to be going south. We're going south just to get around the lake. And then we're going back west because we know that LA is west of where we are.
Yeah.
Similarly, if we decide that we're going to go across the lake because we choose that we want to go straight, then we can take a boat. We can take a plane. We can do a whole bunch of things to go just across the lake. But when we know where we're going, it tells us what things are acceptable. You know what we won't do, though? We won't go east.
I think that's important. When
Yeah.
we start thinking about that, why I'm going is a driving factor. But then if you get and have to go around something, at least you know why you're doing this. You've got your direction, you've got your marching orders, if you will. So nothing stops you.
And all of the options that are not in alignment with your why don't confuse you. Notice going straight across the lake is in alignment with my why. Going south and then going west is in alignment with my why. Going north, not in alignment with my why. Going east, not in alignment with my why. I don't have to consider those options. And
Yeah.
I can easily eliminate them from contention because technically, when you get to the lake, you could go north, east, or south.
Yeah. Now here's a story that kind of brings it all together for me, right? I got a client, or had a client, right? That had to anyway, but it really comes down to, okay, where are you trying to get to? When I ask those
Mhm,
questions, where are you trying to get to? I want to get to a certain revenue level. Okay, right.
mhm,
What is the means by which you feel most comfortable from a talent standpoint doing that? Well, I don't have a talent in this, but I'd like to explore it because I've heard or have, listened to somebody and they said that you can get there. And I says, what I tell them, I said, look, anything will work. The
Yep.
question becomes, will you stay the course? If you say, I want to get to this revenue goal, right, in this particular case, but then what ended up happening was all these different paths he started taking all these different paths. And it was taking us not only trying to go around, but hey, what if we went up? Well, what if we went back east? The moment it
Right.
starts becoming like that, then it's
Mhm.
time to, I gotta go.
Yeah,
Because
and
you're gonna
go ahead.
waste a whole bunch of time before you realize I should have just kept in this particular direction. If
Mhm,
I had to go south, I'm only going south to get back west.
mhm,
But the
mhm.
moment you say, I think we should go back east, then it's over.
Right. And it's interesting when you talk about that because me knowing you, part of that is because, and it's getting back to the why, you know that they're not going to be willing to do the work that it takes to make up for that mistake to then come back and do it and get there. And so
Right.
when you see them start to go all of these different places, you know that they're draining energy and that their why isn't strong enough for them to sustain those mistakes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that's so important. Friedrich Nietzsche said it this way. He said, a person with a sufficient enough why can endure almost any how,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? The key though is you have to know whether your want to is big enough to endure the journey that it's going to take to get there. And there's something that you get when you interact with people from, and you know this from coaching, right? You start to figure out their why and how big their passion is and how willing they are to do it. Whether they're willing to take everything and lay it on the line for this, or whether they just want the easy route. And a lot of times when you see people that are like, well, maybe we try this, or maybe we try this, or maybe we try this, or maybe we try this. The reason that they're doing all of that is because they're trying to find the easiest way to get there because their why isn't strong enough to go the hard way. I love Zig Ziglar said it this way. He used to say, anything worth doing well is worth doing poorly until you can do it well.
Ooh, boy, that's powerful. Because usually you hear it is worth doing right. But at first, you're going to do something poorly. It's really, I love the ideal of reinventing, right? And I've reinvented my own life several times, and
Hmm.
it never ceases to amaze me when you come across someone else that you see that they're at a pivotal moment in their lives,
Hmm.
and they don't want to do what's necessary to get to that. In other words, they don't want to see themselves fail. And oh my
Exactly.
gosh, I'm seeing a lot of this with very, very successful people in an area. They've become a
Hmm.
doctor in an area, and then they've had success in that area. But then now they're getting ready to go into an area that they have no, I can't say no business going into, but they have no experience in. And they're not
Exactly.
willing to see themselves fail
Exactly.
because
And
that hasn't been
part
a
of
part of
that
their
is
programming.
because success, there's this idea that happens with people, and this happens to business owners and leaders all of the time. Because you get to where you are by making less and less and less mistakes, you forget that the way you learned to make less and less and less mistakes was that you had to make more and more and more mistakes so that you could get less and less and less and less. Like you didn't start off perfect. You started off making a whole bunch of mistakes and then fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer. And so once you get to that point, you forget about the journey to get here. Or some people don't want to do that journey again. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't want to have to go through all of that again. And that's respectable, right? Like, I don't
I
want to run a
respect that.
marathon again, right? I did what was necessary to run a marathon once. I'm not going to do it again. There's nothing, I don't have a why in me to run 2 marathons. I had a why in me to run 1 marathon. That was, I wanted to prove that I could run a marathon. I have proven that now. There is nothing else that I need to prove with running. Therefore, no more marathons. Like, I get it. But that's why knowing your why is so important for people, because when they're embarking, right? We talked about the 3 different levels of business. Like when you're starting out, when you're kind of the middle of the road, where you've been there for a little while, and then when you're looking at exiting succession, right? And higher levels. The key is each time you move to a different level, you have to make that determination of, are you willing to start over again? Because you and I have talked about this, right? Running a 5-figure business is different than running a 6-figure business. Running a 6-figure business is different than running a multiple 6-figure business. Running a multiple 6-figure business is different than running a 7-figure business.
Mm.
You have to learn different things, right? I have
Have to
so
become
many
different
things.
people.
You have to come different people. Like there's so much less of my business that I am intimately involved in now that it's multiple 6 figures and approaching 7 figures than there was. I wore all the hats when it was a 6-figure business and even before. Now, literally, I don't even make my appointments. My assistant takes care of making all of my appointments. I have to jump in every once in a while to be like, okay, so I want to make, but like I have to almost ask her, can I put something on my schedule? Because she's got a plan and she knows where everything is and she's operating off of the instructions that I gave her. And so she keeps me in line with the system that we created. Right. So that I can remember, because, as a visionary, you're like, hey, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that. And she's like, no, no, no. Remember, you said you only want to do this many of this. I was like, oh, yeah. Thank you. Right. Like that's completely different than it was before. And I had to learn again how to interact with somebody else to manage my schedule, not asking permission, because of course I can do whatever I want to do, but remembering that we created a system that will get predictable results and that I've given her ownership of managing that system.
Mm.
Right. And so respecting that ownership, like I had to learn that stuff. That just doesn't happen automatically. That's a whole new skill set.
I tell you, we could probably talk about this, man, forever in terms of how do you determine, right? You've got a tool that helps them discover the why, and that probably then helps them determine what idea to follow as you winnow down the ideas. And I think I want to get into that a little bit more. I'm going to leave some links and stuff so you guys can get access to Rob and the tool. But and I use just okay, you got a whole bunch of ideas like most entrepreneurs do. What we're going to do is just put it on a grid, and we're going to rate those ideas literally. And one of the reasons I do it that way is because I said I want you to take the emotion out of it. I don't want you to get married to an idea and you go, oh my gosh, I'm married to this idea. Now what do I do? I want you to literally put it on a grid, and then we do some other work. Now, this is some tools that I use and some work that I do with you to help you determine kind of a pre-validation. Why do I think this ideal might work? And this, I'm telling you, Rob, when I do this, it breaks some hearts sometimes because people have been married to the idea. They just knew it would work. But based on what people are out there in the marketplace doing, based on what people are talking about, based on trends, it suggests it will not. I tell them, I said, look, you can want to put stuff on VHS tape all you want. You can want to put stuff on a particular medium all you want. But if you don't get to the essence of what it is, and that's the key, right? Yeah. VHS, movies. Or you think about the tape. Think about, okay, what's on there? Music. Well, what are all the means by which people are consuming that? Let's find that. Exactly. And that's the key. Let's find that. And then what we'll do is grab the necessary tool to then deliver that thing. But if you're looking at it from the tool standpoint, you lose.
You lose, exactly. And what's beautiful about what you're talking about is that it marries itself so well what we just were talking about, right? The why, the whole understanding of when you know what your why is, right? That's the question that you can say. Because the person's like, I want to put it on VHS. The question that begs is why? Do you want to put it on VHS just so that you can put something on VHS, or do you want to put it on VHS so that other people can experience it? What is in alignment with why you're doing this and to begin with? And so it makes it exactly right. And while that's all you know, that's fine. But is that actually fulfilling your definition of success? Is that actually fulfilling the goal that you have? And I love the way that you do that when you take people through that process, right? I've seen you do it before. When you take people through the process and you're like, here's the thing. What are you trying to accomplish? Why are you doing this work in the first place? Now, here's what the market says. Here's what what the world really looks like about accomplishing that. If you want to get here, you should go there. It's a if then proposition, and you do it so cleanly, so plainly. It's really awesome. And I think that so often people get stuck there. Like I remember I was, and leaders have this problem a lot. Like there's a question that you and I were talking about off camera where people are like, why don't people just do it the right way, right? I wrote my book. It was called "Why Can't People Just Do Their Jobs?" Right? Like there's this constant type of frustration where it's like, I know how to do it. Why won't you just do it the way that I told you to do it, and then it'll work? And I had a leader. I was coaching a lady. This is at a manufacturing plant. Um, that one of the large manufacturer plants in the country, and she was a team lead in the distribution center. So, right, they send out hundreds of thousands of uh, shipments a day. She had a team, and she had been with the company for 30 years. And when she came to me, when I was coaching her as a leader, she came to me with this problem, and she wound up coming to me because her boss wanted to keep her, and she was ready to retire.
He's like,
Right?
I'm tired of
She
this.
was right. I'm tired of it. I'm done. They don't listen. They don't want to do what I'm asking them to do. They're making my life harder. They're making, and so it's not fun anymore. I love the people at this place. I love working here, but these people that they've given me to lead, they're not fun. They're not listening. They're not doing it the right way. She was ready to throw in the towel. She was literally about to put in her resignation when we started working together.
Mm.
And I talked to her and I was like, do you really want to resign? And she was like, no, I don't really want to resign. But if it's going to keep on like this, then I can't stay here because it's stealing my joy. So she was caught in this place where she wanted to actually stay and keep working and keep being there because she felt useful. She loved the job. She loved the people. She loved what they did, everything. But there was this obstacle that was stealing her joy. It was robbing her of all of the happiness and the reason why she was there. So much so she was willing to give it up to get away from that thing. So when she was stuck in that dilemma, we that's when I came along and I started talking to her and I presented her basically proposition that we talk about. I helped her to understand why she did what she did. And in that process, she started to understand that the reason that she liked working there was because she liked helping. She liked contributing. She liked things to get done and get done consistently. That's one of the reasons why she had risen to the ranks and why they made her a leader, because she was a team player. She made sure that everything got done, right? She was a right way type of person, though. He was the type of person where there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And that's not a problem. But she didn't know how to translate her why and connect it to other people. She didn't know how to impact other people with her why, except for by being somebody that did things the right way and got results.
Mm.
But when she became a leader, now you have to interact with other people's whys. And so over the course of our working together, I helped her to realize, first of all, her why being do things the right way to get predictable results so that we can all be safe and secure knowing that we're going to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I helped her to be able to translate that not into this is how I do it, but this is how this is beneficial for you. This is how this helps you. And what she started being able to do is realize that what she wanted to do was to contribute, was to actually help the team, help everybody to grow and to actually simplify things. She did things the right way because it was simple. And so she would simplify things and try to make them as easy as possible because she wanted to contribute to people. She wanted to add value to the organization. She was a team player. So I helped her to in understanding who she was and how she interacted with the world. I helped her to then interact with her team. And what she was able to figure out, she was able to see that the team actually wanted to contribute and they actually wanted to do things better. They wanted to do things faster, but they didn't have the knowledge that she had to know that what she was saying was the right way to do it, especially because there was a lot of stuff that she did that she wasn't actually able to articulate
Mm.
and that they weren't tracking. So the team couldn't see it. She could see it, but she had 30 years advantage. But the team couldn't see it. And so we started instituting certain things that helped the team see what she saw. And here was the beauty of it. She helped the team to be better. They had better numbers and better performance, which made her feel better because she's like, yes, we're getting it done. It's predictable. But more importantly, she went from feeling like they were the problem
Mm-hmm.
to being able to feel like they were her teammates, her team members, and she began to care for them, to take care of them. And She changed. She completely changed. She was like, I love my job now. I love working here again. She was like, I'm not retiring ever. Like that was the experience. She was fine not retiring anymore. She wanted to continue working there because she felt again that passion, that love, because she was getting the right things done. He was simplifying it and making it easier for people, and she was contributing, adding value to the entire thing. And so she was able to live in her purpose with this team. She just had
Yes.
to understand how to do it how to translate it to them so that they could see what she saw. And once she was able to do that, it changed her whole dynamic and her team got better.
It's one of those things, man, where in marketing, we talk about this all the time, right? Enter into the minds where people are. And we oftentimes bring in all of our where we are. And
Exactly.
then that's where there's a disconnect. I felt it. I'm gonna tell you,
Mm-hmm.
everybody right up front, I'm gonna tell you, I have felt that. And because it's like why some people that do stuff at a high level, you just don't get it. You don't understand why they won't get up at 4 a.m. You just don't understand why they won't put in the time and work 16-hour days and all that kind of stuff. You're like, what is
Mm-hmm.
going on here? But
Mm-hmm.
if we enter into the mind where people are, then we understand their why, to your point, right? So I'm really looking forward to that tool, number one, that I know you're going to walk me through it too. So I'm going to look
Mm-hmm.
at some stuff. And, it kind of reminds me um, of some other stories that just, right, that just hurt my heart when you see people go against it, right? When you say, anything will work, just stick with it. And I've been on the other end of that. It's like, I'm not sticking with that. That's good. And then at some other point, come back to it in a more mature state, and you can literally look at it. I've done that with software. I love to buy different software and SaaS products
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. I've had software for several years that when I got it, it was like, oh, it seemed like a good idea, but for whatever reason, I didn't use it. And I'm picking some of it up right now, and I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I see how this works. I see how this could work here, whatever level is, right? So I like the idea that you're using tools. I like to use frameworks, right? I've been telling people a lot
Mm-hmm.
about my new framework of learn, create, get paid. I'm going to show you how, right? And they're going, well, how does that work? I said, well, that's you come into the academy. That's what I'll show you, right?
Right. That's what I show
But
you. Right.
then that all feeds back into how then that thing that you're doing gets into how you can make money from your whole life all the time, kind of thing. It's a bigger deal, but
Yep.
really interesting,
It's
man.
connecting all the dots.
One of the other things, and I only wanted us to go over a couple things, everybody, because we got a lot, right? We talked a lot before we got on camera, and we talked about these frequently asked questions, right? People are still struggling with this stuff, and Rob and I look at it and go, well, it's clear to me. I had a meeting with a couple of entrepreneurs the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and first things first, as I says, well, how much money would you like this business to make you? Right? That was one of the first questions, because when they were talking to me, they were talking about all kinds of stuff. And I was like, well, what does that have to do with anything? How much do you want this business? What do you want this business to do for you? And then they both work jobs. So I says, okay, now we got a capacity situation. Now that
Yep.
doesn't necessarily hurt. It just tells you that you're going to need to take some of that money and hire some people, put in some systems, get some software, whatever it is. But anyway, that's one of the biggest questions. When will this business make me money? And I tell them, well, when does a spreadsheet tell you it will?
Part.
Right now, this is the key. When will it make me money? I says, well, when did you put a salary for it? No, we didn't put a salary. What do you mean you didn't
Right.
put a salary? Well, how are you going to make the business perform or not
Exactly. Right.
if you
It
don't
won't
have a
make you
salary? So I
money
said,
until you tell it to make you money.
and Rob, that was the number one thing in this story. This is the number one thing that I told him to do. I says, from this day forward, if I'm going to work with you, you are going to put a salary in for yourself. Now, we've talked a little bit about this on some other casts, but
Mm-hmm.
you're going to put a salary in, because here's the thing. If the business tells you I cannot do that, wrong business.
Exactly. Or you need to
Competition's telling
figure
you
out what
I'm
you're
not
going
going
to
to
do.
allow you to do that, wrong business.
Right. Wrong business. Right.
Or
Now,
wrong
I think that,
approach,
yeah. And
right?
we've talked about this before with, the Profit First is again, if you all haven't read that book, go pick it up, Mike Lewis. It really talks to you a little bit about and lays the groundwork. At the end of the day, purpose of a business is to bring value to the world. But here's the distinction: profitably.
Yes.
If your business doesn't bring value to the world profitably, aka while putting money in your pocket, then your business is not a business, it is a charity, or at best, a hobby.
Those are the facts. Are y'all
Right?
listening to what we're saying now? Are y'all getting this?
Right?
Are y'all
So
getting
Tiger Woods has a business that is golf. Ricky Fowler, Dustin Johnson, all the top golfers that you can think of, they have a business that is golf. And you know that it's a business because it puts money into their pockets. They have expenses, they have travel expenses, they have entry fees, they have, trainers and all the expenses, but the business puts money into their pockets. I have a hobby, which is golf. It takes money out of my pocket. I get to do the same thing they get to do. I get to go play golf. I get to go hit the ball, put it into the hole, do things. Right? I can go travel. I can go show up at these different places. I can get sponsorships into the events, all these different things. But nonetheless,
hobby?
it's coming out of my pocket, and
Yeah,
therefore it's a hobby, not a
I
business.
like that. Is your business a hobby, y'all? I mean, come on. Let's be, and I like that because that again goes back to the why. Why am I doing this? Well, because this is what I do. This is who I am. I am. I love that idea, man. And this is something I've been helping some people with. This is a little woo woo, y'all. So, just go with me here. I
Mm-hmm.
also oftentimes says, well, is this who you are? And this is something I picked up. This is not, coming from, just my brain. This is some stuff that I've listened to and done some research on. The moment you say this is who I am an early riser, then it's not something you do.
Do exactly.
Anytime you make it something you do, it becomes extra and it becomes the very first thing that you says, yeah, I'm not doing that. Again, goes back to the why, right? So
Exactly.
the inroads to your why is, are you that thing or not? I remember when I wanted to learn marketing and I tried to learn it and it didn't resonate. I says, I am a marketer, and it changed everything. I
Exactly.
am a marketer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the other components, I learned so much about marketing in a short period of time because I was now marketing. Things would come to me and I would see the marketing angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we talk about constantly reinventing. One thing I was telling Linda, I says, I forgot to say that I'm a well-paid marketer. So, and then define that, because I learned marketing and then I knew marketing and then I could teach marketing. But then I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm looking at the bank account and it's not where I think a top marketer would be. So I started introducing, I am a well-paid marketer to the tune of X.
Mm-hmm.
I am using that, right? Now
Yep.
you're identifying yourself as that thing.
Yep.
That's getting to that depth of what Rob talks about. The why. Why are you doing this?
Yes.
Is it just
Yes.
extra? Is it a hobby? All right, because you're going to get those kinds of results. When I'm asking people,
Yes.
how much do you do something else? Do you work another job? Do you do? If that's the case, then that is going to be something that you do, and maybe you need to get some software or someone to help you.
And
That's
it's
it.
so powerful that you put it that way, because knowing your why allows you to make all of those other things fit with who you are. Because this is the thing that a lot of people struggle with. Because I've seen a lot of people, right, go down the pathway of, right, there's the phrasing be, do, have, right? You got to become the person so that you will do the things so that you can have the things, right? And what I learned in that process, it definitely works. First point. It is the process by which I take my students through. How do you become the person who does the things so that you can have what you want? But there was always that piece missing. And piece that we were talking about is the why. Because what a lot of people would struggle with, and I didn't realize this because I knew my why. I had done this work before I understood that knowing your why was key to this. I used to struggle with people because they couldn't figure out who they wanted to be. They couldn't figure out what success was because they didn't know their why. They didn't know why they existed. They didn't know why they were here. And so then they couldn't make the decisions that were necessary to manifest their why because they didn't know their why. And it's so powerful that, like you talked about, once you figured out that being a marketer was in alignment with who you are, which is somebody that gives value to people, right? And we'll talk about this when we do your debrief. But once you figured out that being a marketer was congruent with that, it was off to the races.
Yeah.
Then you had to decide, hey, what type of marketer do I want to be, and make that congruent with my why as well. And once you did, then boom, it's off to the races. And that's the power of this. Once you know your why, you just check everything else that you do, every other decision that you do, to make sure that there's congruence, to make sure that it's in alignment, and it
So powerful.
reduces the stress of decision making.
And oh my gosh, man, that we could tell story after story on this, right? When we're talking to people and coaching people, it's about that, isn't it? When you say, well, here's how you say no to things, because you got people that have difficulty with that, right? And we don't want to open up that can of worms, but I don't know what to say no to. I says, well, you will once you get focused on. I literally had, when I was having a meeting with these two entrepreneurs, is I says, I don't want you doing anything outside of what you've determined and said you need this business to do for you, period. I says, now, here are the numbers, right? They showed me some numbers. I says, ooh, I can see where they were losing money. And I says, well, why are you losing money? It says, well, we don't know. I says, I think you do. Because they could literally see, well, we have to do this amount per month. Are you doing that amount per month? No. Okay. Because we don't know what to do to get to that amount. I says, idea 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pick one. Do it for 30 days. No interruption, so you can test it. Next 30 days, do this. All of the things I've talked about would work, but don't try to do them all at the same time. Right? I said, just don't do that. I said, just do sprints. You talk about that in Scrum and sprints and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
I said, do a 30-day sprint. I says, now they will build and compound upon each other, but you want to get some success early by doing just one thing,
focused
all
action.
out, all focused on, with the idea to get this goal and test it. How did it do? I says, now, after you have done the things we talked about, you've only spent 5 months. 5 things, 5 months. You spent 5. You look at it and says, which one got us to goal? You look at it and you ask yourself a question. Should I pour the gas to it? The answer is going to be, of course, yes. Right? I says, but what you're doing now is just wondering, not knowing why you're not making money, not putting salaries in for yourself, not determining if the business is the right business or if there's too much competition or whatever it is, right? I says, now, I've looked at your business. It's growing. It's getting super hot. You're starting to get competition. That tells you that there's a market. Right? You've got the equipment. You got 2 guys, right? I says, now, what are you doing in these particular areas? And they, of course, well, thank you for what we're doing today because it helps us refocus. They were getting all excited. And I says, now, every activity toward that one thing, because you're testing it for 30 days. Because some people can't see long range and all that kind of stuff. I get it. So you sprint. I says, you're not a marathoner, you're a sprint. Although Rob says all the time, business is a marathon, not a sprint. I said, but some people are sprinters in a marathon game.
There you go. You can sprint throughout the marathon.
Maybe you're on the marathon relay team then. I don't know. You do your
no. And to your point, there's different legs of the marathon, right? So there are different parts where I would run fast. There are different parts where I would run slow, just depending on what was going on. If it's downhill, I'm sprinting, right? If it's uphill, I'm taking it a little bit slower because it doesn't make no sense to sprint up a hill because you're wasting a whole bunch more energy. Right? And so to your point though, it's a series of sprints. That's the key. Once you finish that sprint, it ain't done. Whereas in a sprint, when you get done, they're like, they fall out all on the track and everything. They be like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Like, you can't do that in a marathon. Like, it's like, I'm glad you made it through mile 1, 25 more to go. We're not done yet. Right?
I'm telling you, man, I'm just seeing so many different possibilities with that focusing approach that we talked about, with that focusing approach on, is this your why? Let's hone in on it. Let's do nothing else but things related, activities related, all that stuff. It works. We've seen it work.
We've done it in our lives.
We've seen it. Anyway, we can go on and on with this. I get emotional, y'all. Y'all know I get emotional about this kind of stuff simply because we've seen the success of, but we also understand and can appreciate that there's so many things going on in one's lives now, right? In your life now. We get it. We get it. So when Rob comes out with the tool and you're able to connect to that, I'm going to leave some information in the description field.
Mm-hmm,
So you can go
mm-hmm.
right over there and just start looking at it. In fact, I think Rob and I are going to probably do mine, some maybe live or something like that. We'll go
Mm-hmm.
through it, and then maybe we'll bring some of it live so you can see how it, or at least components of how it works, and
Mm-hmm.
decide if you want to jump into that same thing yourself. But
Yeah.
I think it is, you're right on the cusp, everybody. You're almost there. You're almost there. You just need another little piece of the puzzle, right? And then that'll make it all clear for you. So anyway, we're going to invite you into that here when we go ahead and roll it out. But Rob, so I just wanted to talk about those couple of things. I had about 5 or 6 different things, but it was really that key thing, right? Well, how do I know what I did to follow? You've talked about that, right? And then when will this thing make money? We talked a little bit about that. When it says it will. So, and when the spreadsheet tells you, and the fact that you
Mm-hmm.
put money in there for you to make.
Yeah. You got to
Right.
tell your business to make, you got to tell your business to pay you. Otherwise, other people will tell your business to pay them.
And then the other things we'll get into on some other upcoming episodes, but we just wanted to touch on those. Just some frequently asked questions that we're getting all the time. We wanted to be able to answer some things that if you're having some of these questions in your own mind, cool, you know what to do. You know, comment on them, send us emails, go to our website and stuff like that. I'm rebuilding it. I got some other cool things coming for you all. Man, you're going to love it. Anyway, Rob, I don't have anything else, man. What do you got?
That's it. No, I think that's really good. Like we said, be paying attention, because if you are questioning about your why, if you want to get clarity on your why, there's going to be some stuff coming on the website here shortly where you'll be able to get some time with me to actually go through that. Um, and like I said, we got the tool, but more importantly, we get some time to help you to apply it to your life and see how do you make sure that you run all of your choices through this filter of what is your purpose? Why are you here?
All
Why
right.
do you do what you do?
Well, that's it, y'all. We'll see you on the next one.